Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today, all the way to ancient Tamil Nadu. And get this, we're talking about iron.
Iron.
Iron. Specifically, the surprisingly early origins of iron technology in this region. All thanks to this super interesting new archaeological report I've been reading.
Ah, yes, I was just reading that.
Really?
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's really, it's got a lot of really thought-provoking stuff.
Yeah, it does. Like, we're not just talking about the when of early iron production, but how all about ancient furnaces and the techniques they used to make this stuff.
It's incredible, yeah. The skill they had back then.
It really is. And then there are these metal artifacts they found. They're really making archaeologists kind of rethink conventional timelines.
Absolutely. The findings are definitely significant. See, for the longest time, the assumption was that ironworking started in just one place and kind of spread out from there. But this report is really kind of pointing towards multiple independent origins. And what's really fascinating is Tamil Nadu could have been one of the earliest, maybe even earlier than anywhere else in the world when it comes to ironworking.
I'm hooked already. But before we get too deep into ancient furnaces, can you just give us a quick picture of what Iron Age Tamil Nadu was actually like?
Imagine a landscape with over 3,000 Iron Age sites, settlements, burial grounds, even early writing. And here's the thing. In northern India, there was a distinct copper age, right? But in Tamil Nadu, it seems like they kind of jumped straight to iron.
So they just skipped a whole technological era, just like that.
It's possible. And it might have had something to do with just the sheer abundance of iron ore in the region.
Wow. Okay, so that's the setting. Now, you mentioned all those sites. The report goes into detail about some specific excavation sites, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did any, really stand out to you?
Absolutely. There are a few sites that just have incredible finds, like Adichanallur, Sivagalai, the Lunganur. These places have yielded remarkably well-preserved artifacts. Take Adichanallur, for instance. They found these beautifully crafted iron swords and then all these different types of bronze objects, and they even found this distinctive white-painted black and red ware pottery.
So we're not just talking about metal, but also, artistry and craftsmanship, too. It gives you a sense of their culture, doesn't it?
Precisely.
Okay, so we're talking about ancient timelines here. How do archaeologists actually know the dates of these things? How do they get so specific?
Well, that's where we get into some really cool science. They use techniques like radiocarbon dating, or specifically what's called AMS-14C, and then luminescence dating, OSL.
I'm guessing those aren't as simple as just looking at something and saying that looks old.
Definitely not. They analyze the physical properties of these artifacts, like the stuff they're made of, the soil around them, all that. And what's pretty wild is many of these Tamil Nadu sites, they date back to between 2500 BCE and 3000 BCE. And some, like Sivagalai, they go back even further. One sample there dates as far back as 3345 BCE.
3345 BCE. I mean, that's older than the pyramids. It's really shifting how we think about when iron technology first showed up. But okay, so we know when, but what about the how? How were they actually producing iron back then? It's not like they could just, pick up some ore and start hammering.
No, not at all. Getting iron from ore, shaping it into tools and weapons, I mean, that takes some serious knowledge. The report talks about 3 main types of furnaces they would have used back then. Circular ones, clay bank cavities, and then trench furnaces.
So different types of furnaces for different purposes, I guess.
Right. And based on what they found, it seems the first 2 types were definitely being used in Tamil Nadu.
So can you give us an idea of what it was like to work with those early furnaces?
Imagine a well-preserved furnace, like the one they found at Kodamanal. Just a glimpse into the ingenuity of these metal workers. They were getting temperatures as high as 1,300 degrees. That's right. That's hot enough to melt silver.
Yeah.
And they were controlling that heat, building these things, without any of the tools or technology we have today.
I can't even imagine. Okay, so far we've mostly talked about iron, but the report, it also mentions high-tin bronze objects being found alongside the iron. What's so special about these bronzes, and why are they kind of raising eyebrows amongst archaeologists?
Well, what sets these bronzes apart is their high tin content. And what makes it really interesting is that high tin bronze is usually associated with the Bronze Age, which, traditionally comes before the Iron Age. So finding them together in Tamil Nadu, well, it just suggests a more complex technological landscape than we initially thought.
It's like the timeline is all mixed up.
A little bit, yeah.
And it's not just the metal itself, right? The report actually lists all these different types of high-tin bronze artifacts they found, like rings, sieves, bowls with deer knobs on them, even bowls with these elaborate bird stands. It's like They were into practicality, but also had this whole artistic side too.
Exactly. And that brings us to another interesting puzzle, wootz steel.
Wood steel. Okay, so this is like legendary material, right?
It's right. Renowned for its strength and flexibility, it's widely believed to have originated in South India. But the exact how and when, that's something we're still trying to figure out.
So what makes it so special?
It's a type of ultra-high carbon steel, and the way it's made, using crucibles, that's what gives it these unique properties. What we do know is people back then really prized it for its sharpness and resilience. In fact, they found a sword from Tamil dating back to the 13th century BCE, made of this very steel.
A 13th century BCE wootz steel sword.
That's incredible. So it seems like ancient Tamil Nadu was just this like hub for metal innovation, different metals, different alloys, different techniques. They were trying it all.
It certainly seems that way.
But what does it all mean for the people who live there? How did this mastery of metal shape their society, their lives, their everything? Well, let's take agriculture, for instance. Think of the change iron tools would have brought. Imagine being able to cultivate more land, produce more food. That alone leads to population growth. You know, maybe even specialization of labor, the rise of urban centers.
So something as basic as an iron plow could have set off a chain reaction impacting their whole society.
Precisely. And it's not just agriculture, warfare too. Iron weapons would have shifted the balance of power, potentially causing the rise and fall of entire kingdoms. We can see echoes of this in the archaeological record, the types of objects, the way they're buried, even the art they used. It all tells a story.
Like those swords you mentioned earlier from Adichanallur. Those weren't just weapons, they were works of art, weren't they?
Exactly. Status symbols, maybe, or used in rituals, maybe even heirlooms passed down through generations.
It's amazing how an object can hold so much meaning, isn't it?
Mm.
And those high-tin bronze objects, those are telling us something too, right?
They are. I mean, finding them alongside iron suggests that these societies weren't just about practicality. They were experimenting, exploring different aesthetics, developing their own unique styles.
Like pushing the limits of what they could do with metal, both practically and artistically.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've got this image of a very innovative culture, but these high-tin bronze objects, are they telling us anything about their interactions with other cultures? Like, were these things imported, or were they making them locally but with knowledge and materials from elsewhere?
That's the million-dollar question. It's something archaeologists are still trying to piece together. I mean, the high-tin bronze could suggest trade routes extending far beyond Tamil Nadu, maybe reaching as far as Mesopotamia or even Egypt.
Wow. So we could be looking at ancient trade routes spanning continents, carrying not just goods but also ideas and technologies and art. It really highlights how connected the ancient world was.
Absolutely. And that exchange of ideas is really key to understanding how civilizations grew and how innovation spread. It's like a reminder that human history, it's not just a collection of separate stories, but a giant tapestry woven together.
Now, I'm also thinking about the impact all of this iron production must have had on the environment. I mean, it's not exactly a clean industry, right? You need a lot of fuel to run those furnaces.
You're absolutely right. Iron production on that scale requires a lot of wood to make charcoal. So it's very likely that deforestation and changes to local ecosystems were happening. It just underscores that even way back then, humans were having a big impact on their surroundings.
It's kind of a sobering thought, isn't it? Especially when we think about the environmental challenges we're facing today. Makes you wonder what we can learn from them, from how they managed things back then.
Absolutely. Studying the past can give us some really valuable insights into the long-term effects of human actions, and maybe even point us toward more sustainable ways of doing things.
Before we move on, I want to touch on the whole scientific dating thing again. It's not just about looking at something and guessing its age, right?
Right?
These researchers are using some serious tech to get these dates.
That's right. Techniques like radiocarbon dating and luminescence dating, those are what have really allowed us to challenge some of the old ideas about the Iron Age. Because we can now date things so accurately.
It's like having a time machine. We can look back into the past with more clarity than ever before. And it's thanks to that we're making these incredible discoveries, like in Tamil Nadu.
Absolutely. These scientific tools are letting us paint a much clearer picture of the past, a more accurate picture, for sure. It's a really exciting time to be in this field.
Okay, so as we get ready for our next segment, I've got a question for everyone listening. If these dates from Tamil Nadu are already changing how we think about the Iron Age, what other historical narratives might we need to rethink? What other surprises could be out there just waiting to be uncovered?
That's a great question to ponder. That's a great question, and it really gets at the heart of what makes archaeology so fascinating. It's not about just accepting what we think we know, but about constantly questioning, digging deeper, and being open to new possibilities.
It's like a detective novel,
Right.
right? Always looking for new clues and piecing together the evidence to solve the mystery. And these Tamil Nadu discoveries, they've thrown a real wrench in the works, haven't they?
They certainly have. It's like we've been working with a puzzle, thinking we had all the pieces in the right place. But then suddenly we find these new pieces that just don't fit the old picture.
And it forces us to reevaluate everything, to look at things from a fresh perspective.
Exactly. Take the whole idea of technological progress, for example. We tend to think of it as this like straight line, a neat progression from one stage to the next. But the evidence from Tamil Nadu suggests a much more, a much more complex picture.
Right, like with those high tin bronze objects. Finding those alongside early iron tells us that maybe things weren't so linear after all.
Absolutely. It challenges our assumptions about how different technologies emerged and interacted. We're seeing a blending of traditions, a fusion of ideas.
It's like they were experimenting, pushing the boundaries of what was possible with metal. Which makes me think about wootz steel. You mentioned it earlier. This legendary material known for its incredible strength and flexibility.
Yes. Wootz steel. It's a truly remarkable material, and the fact that they were producing it in Tamil Nadu so early, potentially as far back as the 13th century BCE, that's just mind-blowing.
It is. I mean, think about the skill and knowledge that would have taken, especially back then. They didn't have the tools and technology we have today.
Right. It's a testament to their ingenuity, their understanding of materials and processes.
And the fact that they were working with wootz steel so early, it really strengthens the idea that Tamil Nadu was a center of innovation, maybe even influencing other parts of the world.
It's certainly a possibility. It's fascinating to think about those potential connections, those networks of knowledge and exchange that might have stretched across continents.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the technological aspects, the metals, the techniques, but what about the people behind it all? How did all of this shape their lives, their society?
Well, let's just take one example. Agriculture. Imagine the transformation iron tools would have brought to farming. Suddenly, they'd be able to cultivate more land, produce more food.
Right, leading to increased population, maybe even the rise of cities and specialized crafts.
Exactly. And it wouldn't have stopped there. Iron would have impacted everything from how they built their homes to the tools they used in everyday life, even their art.
It's like iron became the backbone of their society. But of course, there's always another side to the coin. We've talked about the environmental impacts of iron production. That's something we can't ignore, can we?
Absolutely not. As amazing as iron was, producing it on a large scale had consequences. I mean, think about the amount of wood they'd need to make charcoal to fuel those furnaces.
Leading to deforestation, potentially.
Exactly. It's a sobering reminder that even back then, human actions had a significant impact on the environment.
It's a lesson that's more relevant than ever today, isn't it? We're still grappling with those same issues, trying to find a balance between progress and sustainability.
It's a constant challenge. But studying the past, seeing how those who came before us dealt with these issues, it can offer valuable insights. Maybe even help us find solutions for the future.
Okay, before we move on, I want to talk about the role of science in all of this.
Hmm.
Those dating techniques you mentioned earlier, those are what's allowing us to really dig deep into the past, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Radiocarbon dating, luminescence dating, these are the tools that are helping us paint a much more accurate picture of history.
It's like we've got this incredible time machine now, letting us look back with a level of detail that was unimaginable just a few decades ago.
It's really revolutionized the field of archaeology. We're not just relying on guesswork anymore. We have the data to back up our claims, to challenge old assumptions, and to confidently rewrite history.
And it's thanks to those advancements that we're making discoveries, like those in Tamil Nadu, pushing the boundaries of what we thought we knew about the Iron Age.
Exactly. And who knows what other mysteries might be solved, what other surprises are waiting to be uncovered as these technologies continue to evolve.
It's an exciting time to be studying the past. Now, before we wrap up this segment, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, the possibility of even earlier evidence of ironworking. It's a tantalizing thought, isn't it? The idea that what we know now might just be the tip of the iceberg.
It is. And that's what makes archaeology so captivating. There's always that sense of wonder, of the unknown. We're constantly pushing the boundaries of our knowledge, seeking out new evidence that can reshape our understanding of the past.
And the Tamil Nadu discoveries have shown us that those boundaries can be pushed further than we ever imagined.
They certainly have. And it underscores the importance of continued research and exploration. Who knows what other secrets are buried beneath the surface, just waiting to be unearthed?
It's a thrilling prospect. With each new discovery, we gain a deeper appreciation for the ingenuity of our ancestors, for their ability to adapt, to innovate, to leave their mark on the world.
And their story is our story. It's a reminder of the long and intricate journey of human progress, of the challenges we faced, the triumphs we've achieved, and the potential we hold for shaping the future.
So as we head into our final segment, let's leave our listeners with this thought. If the Tamil Nadu discoveries have challenged our understanding of the Iron Age, what other historical narratives might be ripe for re-examination? What other assumptions might we be holding on to that could be overturned by future discoveries?
That's a great question to consider. It's a reminder that history is not static. It's a dynamic, evolving field of study. And as we uncover new evidence, develop new technologies, and embrace new perspectives, we have the power to constantly reshape our understanding of the past.
Yeah, and it's that ability to reshape our understanding, to kind of rewrite those narratives that makes archaeology so exciting. It's like you said, history isn't static.
Right. It's a living thing, always changing, always evolving as we learn more.
Exactly. And, speaking of evolving, I keep thinking about the environmental side of all this.
Right.
We talked about the impact of iron production earlier. It's something that's super relevant today, with all the conversations about sustainability.
It is, and it's really interesting to look back at these ancient societies and see how they were grappling with similar challenges. I mean, even back then, with something as basic as iron production, there were trade-offs, weren't there?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, how do they manage those trade-offs? What can we learn from them?
Well, we can see from the archaeological record that they were definitely aware of the impact they were having on their surroundings, the way they managed their resources, the choices they made. It all tells a story.
And it's a story that we can learn from, right? I mean, maybe their solutions aren't directly applicable to our modern problems, but their way of thinking, their approach to balancing progress and sustainability.
Absolutely. There's a lot we can learn from studying the past, not just about the technologies they developed, but also about their relationship with the environment.
It's like a reminder that we're not the first to face these kinds of challenges. And maybe, by looking back, we can find new ways forward. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from ancient furnaces to high tin bronze to the mysteries of wootz steel. But as we wrap up our deep dive into Iron Age Tamil Nadu, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. If these discoveries have already shaken up our understanding of the Iron Age, what other hidden histories are out there just waiting to be uncovered?
That's the big question, isn't it? And I think that's what makes archaeology so compelling. It's the thrill of the unknown, the possibility that the next discovery could completely change everything we thought we knew.
It's like a giant puzzle, and we're just starting to put the pieces together. Who knows what the final picture will look like?
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's a journey of exploration, of discovery, of constantly pushing the boundaries of our knowledge.
And it's a journey that we can all be a part of. Whether you're a professional archaeologist or just someone with a passion for history, there's always something new to learn, something new to discover. So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep digging deeper. Because who knows? Maybe you'll be the one to uncover the next game-changing piece of the puzzle.
That's what I love about this field. It's open to everyone, and the possibilities are endless.
Absolutely. So, to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, keep exploring the past because it's full of surprises.